Okay, guys, we're live now.
All right.
Come on. So, yes, hi, I'm Hunter Foster. I'm the artistic director for Redhouse, and I have some special guests with us tonight. Some terrific performers, actors, directors, writers who have joined us at Redhouse, and a special guest, Jill Whelan from Love Boat, who Ted and Fred know. My disclaimer is Love Boat was every Saturday was what we watched, and we watched it religiously. So I'm so happy to have all three of you here. Of course, I've worked with Fred and Ted before, and so thanks for coming back and being a part of the Redhouse family.
Hello, Syracuse, New York.
That's right.
Good to be aboard.
It's going to snow here on Saturday.
What?
Really?
It is snowing here on Saturday.
Is it really?
It's crazy. Yes.
Wow.
Well, I mean, come on. If there's anything I know about Syracuse, that it snows whenever you don't want it to. I mean, you remember Christmas Carol, right?
Oh God, right. Exactly.
Remember how many rehearsals we canceled because people couldn't get to where they wanted to go because of the snow? What did we have? We had what was that thing they called it? A snow out or a white out or something?
Oh, that's right. It was a squall warning.
A squall warning.
So we were in the midst of rehearsals for Christmas Carol. Obviously, this was in November and
what part
December.
Did Fred play? What part did Fred play?
What part did you play, Fred?
Ebenezer Scrooge, dude.
Oh.
I mean, what do you think I was going to be, Tiny Tim?
Well, your limp's all better now, so that's out.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
one leg shorter than the other.
So, yeah, we were in the midst of rehearsal, and then all of a sudden, like everyone's phones went off, and it was like emergency squall warning. And so apparently and it happened in New York, and you could actually see it was like this giant cloud of snow that sort of crept over the Hudson and enveloped the whole city, and then it did the same in Syracuse. But it scared everyone, and so that night, I think we had like 30 people in the house.
Well, let me just say as a point of clarification here, we did not have a rehearsal with everybody in the company and a run through until our first preview.
Absolutely.
That's how difficult this show was. And to just give Hunter his due, he never lost it. He never got upset. Now, I don't know what he did when he went home to his wife, but when he was in the theater, he was cool, and everything was together, and most of us were sitting around lighting candles and speaking to Santa Muerte because we thought we were all going to die on opening night, but we did not.
No.
Did we?
That was probably the most nerve-wracking opening nights I've ever sat through, because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen.
We were preparing you for the pandemic.
Speaking of the pandemic, Fred, Ted,
yes,
we were in the midst. So Ted was directing a production of Fences, and we were in a week of rehearsals when we had to pull the plug on the show because of the pandemic. And just what was that? I mean, I know it was like on my end, but from your end as a director, knowing that this thing is looming and there's a possibility for us to shutter. Like, what was it with you and your cast? Like, how did you deal with that on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the fun thing is we had a real cohesive cast, and we were finding all of these wonderful moments in Fences. I've seen Fences a number of times, and we found things in our production that we were doing with the Redhouse that I had never seen in any of the productions that I visited. So we were all excited, and we talked about it, and we took the play apart and, built on what we put back as the foundation of the play. So we were excited about getting the opening and truly, truly disappointed that we didn't get a chance to open the play. But I've talked to everyone since, so they're looking forward to coming back and showing the Syracuse audience our interpretation of August Wilson.
I mean, I really want people to see this, and I'm really hoping this is going to work out, that we can do it. you know.
Yeah.
That's-
Well, hopefully in the fall, isn't it in the fall that if things go well, that we can come back and do it? I know everyone, all of the actors, and I've been getting texts and calls from the actors, saying, "Are we still on? Are we still on?" And I say yes. So that's a really good sign that the actors are excited about doing the show. That's a really, really good sign.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I told everyone, I said this is sort of like the first time in history when literally every actor in America is out of work. Like there's no one doing anything. Like it's really strange.
Well, I'm shooting something.
Are you?
Yeah, tell them about the show. Tell them we've got a show called, Jill.
Take it from the top.
And Jill figured out a way to shoot without violating social distancing.
Well,
that?
We're shooting it right now. Everybody is shooting it with their iPhone. My son is an editor, and he's obviously out of work right now because there's nothing to edit. So he's editing, and we invested in a couple of green screens and a couple of fill lights. Nothing like Irving Lipman would have, but just
Irving Lipman was the cinematographer of Love Boat.
Yeah.
And
Otherwise
they used
known
to call
as
him the
Lippy.
flamethrower.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, we wrote the next episode. We've been releasing it on Facebook, on our Take It From the Top TV Facebook page. And we wrote the next little episode. We're writing mini episodes. And every actor is shooting himself. And my son with these green screens is going to try to combine us and
That's
we'll
great.
see how we do.
Yeah,
Try to do some creative things that are
we
different.
did she let me do a cameo in this, and then she wanted to come film me, and we said no, we'll film it on our own and send it to you. And we figured out how to send it to her and her son Harrison, and they're editing it all together. And when does it go up, Jill? When are you putting it up?
It should go up next week, but we had Leah had a family emergency, so we just need to wait on her bits. So, but everything is shot now. He's begun editing, and hopefully it'll be next week that it's up.
Oh, great.
We're hoping for
The
Tuesday.
emergency isn't corona related, is it?
No, it's not
Okay.
Creole. I'll tell you later. It's
Okay, just as long as it's
her mom
not.
passed.
Yeah.
So I'm
Okay.
letting her, so anyway, but she's great, and the show is great, and it's been extremely exciting to try to figure out how to do this. It's been a great challenge, and I like a good challenge, so it happens.
Yeah.
And so speaking of that, because I think a lot of people are trying to. I'm so glad that we're artists, we're creative, we're continuing to do things like this because we just can't sit around and not work and not do the things we love to do.
No.
Ted wrote a play that I sent me the Zoom, which I was able to watch, which is a fascinating play about Shakespeare.
And who really wrote Shakespeare's plays?
Don't start with me, brother.
Yeah,
Don't
man.
start with me.
Fred, I wrote this for you.
Well, let me tell you something. You
Oh
know,
my God, dinner theater. It's starting now.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, go get yourself some takeout while we talk. You know it, Teddy. You know what the Declaration of Doubt is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's our constitution right now, but whatever.
Hunter, do you know what the Declaration of Doubt is?
Explain the Declaration of Doubt, Fred.
The Declaration of Doubt was started by Mark Rylance and Derek Jacobi to establish a group of people who said Shakespeare was great, but we're not sure he's the guy who wrote all these plays. Now, as you probably know, there are people that think that Christopher Marlowe wrote the plays, that Francis Bacon wrote the plays. The hot topic right now is the Earl of Oxford. My feeling is Shakespeare was a collaborator. And as we learn more about him, we're going to learn he had more people helping him than we knew before, okay? But the Declaration of Doubt says he was a great writer. This was a great thing, but we're not sure he did everything. And that, I think, is going to define how we go forward. Now, to Ted's play, which you've read, Ted's play has the Earl of Oxford, Francis Bacon, and Christopher Marlowe, who is not dead, and
a young William, 29-year-old Shakespeare looking for an acting job.
Who is kind of the Ryan Albinus of this show, okay? Hunter will get that, nobody else will. Okay, so the whole idea is, let's explore whether or not Shakespeare really wrote everything that we thought he did. And that is a viable discussion. What I don't buy is that the Earl of Oxford wrote everything from Shakespeare to Edmund Spenser to Philip Sidney to the King James Bible, and I think that's horseshit. So,
no. I've also said that Marlowe wrote, if you remember, I did a whole thing on Marlowe wrote some of the plays, and that it was exactly what you were saying, collaboration. It was.
Well, we know Marlowe wrote part of Henry VI. We know that.
Yes.
We know that. Jill, you know that, right? We
Yes.
talked about this all the time when we were on the Lido deck, right?
So,
well, what else is there to
She
talk
was
about?
11.
the thing is that a lot of the Shakespeare plays that are attributed to Marlowe happened after Marlowe died. And so I also go into how they faked his death, which is, you'll find that in a couple of different sources, which I used that, this is how they smuggled Marlowe out of England to Italy. But those are one of the things. So I took all of this information that I have gathered and I put it into this play where the four major contenders as the authors are meeting in a tavern during a pandemic. And
everyone comes in with their
masks.
scarves and masks.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. A lot of good Shakespearean jokes. I think good Shakespearean jokes, and the audience seemed to enjoy it. So it's a fun idea.
Jill, know all the Love Boat stories from these guys. They've told me tons and tons and tons. What were they like? What were these two like on the boat?
Well, I'm still in therapy.
We taught her everything, and we also avoided the lawsuit.
Although at least now I'm drinking top shelf vodka.
Yeah.
There you go, baby.
We taught her that when she was 12.
Yeah.
Well,
We had a lot of fun. Jill grew up watching us play and have fun, and she jumped in with both feet and joined us, and it was a family. It really was a family.
Yeah.
I was very, very lucky, though. To answer your question, I was super, super lucky to work with these guys because, I mean, they've got their thing going and it's already a very successful show. And then you bring in this little brat kid. It could have gone a lot of different ways, but they could not have been sweeter. They could not have been more accommodating. And they could not have been better teachers for me. I mean, everything I learned was from these guys, and I'm grateful that I did.
Well, that's all sweet and lovely and smarmy, but let me just add one thing. If she wasn't as good a student as she was, which means she paid close attention to me and Ted, she wouldn't have made it. I mean, she was brought in to kind of give Gavin MacLeod a softer side. And she did that brilliantly. And the relationship between her and Captain Steubing was one of the things that really made the show successful and probably ran as long as it did. But she was good from day one. And the fact that she paid attention to us and is still seeing us is...
And we're still friends, yes.
Yeah, it's a great failing in her personality, but I appreciate it.
Well, I just stay drunk most of the time. That's how I handle it. No.
Well, that's what we mean about top shelf vodka.
No, I'm very lucky. And these guys, if it wasn't an amazing relationship, we wouldn't still be all of us in touch. And we are. And the beauty is we all support each other. The guys support me. I was just on the phone with Lauren Cindy Tweez 3 days ago, and you know, we're just a family. You can't work for that many years together, and especially in the tight quarters that we did work when we were actually on cruises, and go through some of the crazy things that we went through off camera. We are bonded for so many reasons.
I was, and again, getting to know these guys, you know, I also think it's sort of fascinating that they got to work with so many, you guys all got to work with these legends that were, because they were transitioning. It was that golden age of, I mean, you talk about all those people, I mean, Ethel Merman, and I mean, who are the other people?
Ray Bolger,
Al Channing, Della Reese. Yeah, we had
Rogers, Olivia de
Helen
Havilland, William
Hayes,
Fish,
John Mills, Juliet Mills, Haley Mills,
I mean, that's
General Mills. I mean,
Andy Warhol, Paulston.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we were
Short.
very lucky. We either caught them on the way up or we caught them on the way down. And they
Either way.
stopped on the boat, you know, before they hit rock bottom or before they hit their peak. They took a ride on the boat.
well,
And
well, now,
I don't know if you guys know that my dog's name is Charo.
yes, of course.
No. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Because we were big. Look, I mean, like I said, we were big Love Boat fans, and my wife and I are we love Charo, and we actually Charo's been making these videos during the pandemic.
I talked to her 2 days ago, the wash hands videos.
Yes, hysterical.
Yeah. She is a doll. She
Yeah.
is the best.
She's also one of the greatest classical guitarists in the world. Studied with the
Number 2.
Romeros, Segovia. I mean, all you need to do is listen to her play classical guitar, and you'll say, "Oh, have I not understood this woman for most of my life?"
Wow.
Yeah. And she will always tell you that she did the coochie coochie so that she could do the flamenco guitar, because that's her passion. But in order to get there, that's the route she took, was that character. But she is brilliantly talented, still practices 4 hours every day.
Wow. Well, you know, when I see Modern Family and the wife on Modern Family, I think of Charo opening that door for her. Sophia?
Oh yeah.
She said she did. Sofia Vergara told me that, and so did J-Lo,
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
and thanked her.
Yeah. Because she did. She opened that door.
No, yeah, we love those videos. We've been watching all her hand washing videos. They're so funny.
You know, I went to the christening of her
Oh,
son. Her son, Shelito, named after her husband, Shell, who sadly died a couple of years ago. We have known her forever, and she has been an adjunct member of our family for as long as the show has been a hit. Jill keeps in closer contact with her, but we always feel as though it's not a complete show without Charo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm trying to make sure. Yep. We're still. I always have to check to make sure that we haven't been kicked off or something. So we're still live. We're still live. For the guys for a second. Well, first of all, before we go to the guys, so another thing, I'm sure you hear this all the time, Jill. Airplane.
Yes.
I mean, you know, it was literally like I watched it. I've probably seen that movie 100 times before I was 20.
It's a fun one. It's a fun one. I love that movie.
Yeah, and to work with all those people in that movie must have been something as well. I mean,
it's crazy because a lot of them guested on Love Boat, so that was super fun.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Leslie Nielsen, who is the star of that movie, did
You
our
mean
show.
Whoopi Cushion Nielsen?
Oh, you guys, you know the story about
All
him.
right, listen to
Let
this.
Fred tell his story.
You may not know this. Leslie Nielsen always had with him, whenever he did a gig, a hand buzzer that sounded like a fart. So he did a Love Boat with Ava Gabor, okay? And we're sitting in the Coral dining room, and he's sitting next to Ava, and we're having a serious scene, and he's going, okay, right.
And he always does a side lean.
This is what he was known for. He was known in the business as Leslie the fart machine, okay? Now, when I got elected to Congress, Leslie came and testified about something. I don't know what it was. And a colleague of mine, a guy from Kentucky named Larry Hopkins, who was a member, managed to talk him out of his handheld fart machine. And Larry used to use that whenever there was a State of the Union address.
Oh,
Oh my
God.
God.
So the,
Oh my God.
so the sergeant of arms would come in, and the members would stand in the aisles as a kind of cordon for the president when he would come down the aisle. This was during the presidency of George H.W. Bush, George Bush the first, okay? And so Larry would have this thing, and the sergeant of arms would come in and say, Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States. And Larry would go, and everybody who was a member of Congress, and of course very distinguished, would go, oh, Jim.
My God. Were there any other crazy stuff like that? I mean, in Congress?
You mean other than the laws we were?
Yeah. Like any
Well-
of the stunts? Like, who was the funniest person you were, like, was there, because we always think of congressmen of being, you know, they're putting on an air or something, and like.
They are. And I was one of them.
But I mean, like, is there someone that's like we would never think has got a great sense of humor?
Yes. And I'll tell you this story and then I'll shut up. In 1993, George Bush had lost his reelection to Bill Clinton. And the Soviet Union had collapsed. And Clinton wanted to make a deal with the new Russian Federation, whatever that was. And the guy who was in charge of it was this guy, Boris Yeltsin, who was kind of unreliable. So Clinton...
Kind of unreliable.
Yeah. So Clinton sent, wait for it now, Richard Nixon to Russia to do a deal with the new Russian government whereby the United States, now think about this, the United States, who had been an enemy of the Soviet Union since 1917, we were going to give them financial aid to establish a democratic republic. Not an easy sell. Nixon goes over there. He comes back. And as it turned out, the Democrats in the House, who controlled the House at the time, were much more inclined to accept the financial aid than the Republicans were. So Clinton asked Nixon to go up to the House and meet with all the Republican members and see if he could talk them into supporting the Freedom Support Act. So Nixon convenes a group in the chamber of the House, and he launches into a 45-minute speech about his career and his life without notes. And at one point, and by the way, most of us were sitting here saying, we're not going to listen to this guy. This guy screwed the Republican Party. This guy's trouble, okay? We're not going to do this. So we're sitting there stone-faced, and Nixon gets up there and starts talking about his career, and he talks about going to the Soviet Union as the vice president. He said, you know, when I went there, I met with the foreign minister, and we stood in a great room with great chandeliers. And I said to him, you know, in our country, we have freedom of speech. We say what we want, and we debate what we think, and we go back and forth, and one side wins and one side loses. And every time I said that, he would look up at the chandelier. And I would say, you know what else we have in our country? We have freedom of elections. We have freedom of election, freedom of assembly. And every time I said that, he would look up at the chandelier. And that's where I learned how to tape. Okay. And all right, we got 185 members of the Republican Party sitting in the House, and they fell out. They laugh. I've never heard a larger laugh in my life.
Wow.
But think about this. Nixon's wife had just died. He was a lonely old man, disgraced, and he tells this joke on himself. We supported that legislation. I mean, I've never seen an act like that in my life. He killed it.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's classic comedy.
His last great stand-up.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't see that coming.
No. But I mean, to get up in front of a bunch of people and say, and that's where I learned how to type, which he denied forever when he was the.
Oh my God.
Can you believe that?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I've never heard that story.
Well, that's because I'm the only one who tells it. Well, no, I'm serious. I mean, I don't know. Maybe other members of Congress tell that story, but you'll not hear that from the Nixon Library down in San Clemente. I mean, really.
Wow.
It had to be there.
You had to be there.
And it was not in the Oliver Stone movie.
No, it was not. No, and it won't be.
Ted, all of you guys do many different things. What do you like to do? I know you direct, you write. You've got. I mean, how many plays have you written? Like 200?
No. I've got 26 plays now with this latest one. 26 plays. I specialize. I call myself a footnote historian because I write history plays and I talk about the African American experience throughout American history. And usually, if you were just to get a history book, it would be a footnote. And that kind of set me on the road. So I wrote a play about the American Revolution and George Washington. And I do it from the point of view of Washington's slaves. Then I wrote a play about John Brown and Harper's Ferry, because sometimes people don't realize that there were 5 black guys with John Brown at Harper's Ferry. So I wrote a play about that. And then I moved up to the Civil War, and there was a spy in the Confederate White House, Jeff Davis's White House. There was a woman named Mary Bowser. So I call myself a footnote historian because if you were to read about Mary Bowser, it would be a footnote in some book. And what I do is I gather up information and then I expand on it. So you get a more cohesive idea of the African-American participation in American history. And that kind of set me on the road. But the last couple of years, I've been really involved with doing Shakespearean type plays. I've written a prequel to Othello.
Right.
Which Fred saw. Fred came to Los Angeles and saw it. And it's really for those, because sometimes there are questions as you're watching Othello. If you see my play before you see Othello. Huh?
I saw it too.
Yes, Jill came. And if you see my play before you see a production of Othello, you have a stronger understanding of what's going on in the plot. Mm-hmm. Recently, I wrote a play about Shylock because I was upset with the current administration and how they dealt with immigrants. So I decided to write a play about what I call the original immigrants, which were the Jews in Italy, in Venice. And so I did a take on Merchant of Venice from the perspective of being Jewish, Shylock. And it's a really, in Merchant of Venice, it's more of a derogatory spin on Shylock. And I took more of a positive spin on being an immigrant in a country that you're not really a part of.
How long did it take you?
I was upset with,
How long did it take you to write a play?
If I got a good idea, it happens pretty quickly. What I do is I fill myself with information. I spend a certain amount of time just filling myself with information. And it could take between a month, 2 months, depending on how passionate I am on the subject. This last play, because of the pandemic, and I had been given, I did a lecture with the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowships, which literally is that Oxford wrote all the plays bar none. And so they gave me, relax, Fred. Anyway, they gave me all of these books when I did this lecture for them. They had at Mark Twain's house in Hartford, Connecticut. They gave me about half dozen books on why it was the Earl of Oxford. And then about 3 months later, I was in Los Angeles and I was at another Shakespeare deal. And this guy, him and his brother, had spent 30 years writing on why Christopher Marlowe alone wrote all the plays. And what he did was he had a manuscript and he didn't have a published book, but he emailed all this information through this manuscript that he had written. So I read that. That was about 500 pages. And it's just fascinating. So they had some very compelling arguments on why it was Marlowe, compelling arguments on why it was Oxford. When I was growing up, it was Bacon. And then also there was stuff that information I had on Shakespeare. So what I did was I went through all of that information. And I said to myself, what if it wasn't one guy? What if one guy didn't write all those plays? And I came up with this play that shows the interaction, the collaboration of all of them working. And it's kind of a fun comedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I really enjoyed it. And it's to write 26 plays, you know, sometimes it take you know, a career sometimes is 5-6 plays, but to have.
Well, Shakespeare only wrote 37, and that's assuming he wrote them all himself, which he didn't.
Yeah.
But this guy writes plays the way cops write traffic tickets. Okay, so just prepare yourself for that. I mean,
no, you know what happens is I get passionate about an idea. The idea takes over, and my wife will tell you I'm in the middle of the night. The muse goes off. I slide out of the bed. I go into another room and I write because she got mad at me for turning on the lights all the time. So what happens is an idea takes over, and then I just listen to the idea and I feed the idea, and usually out of that comes a play. And Jill's writing right now. Jill, you've got a writing partner. You write. What is that like for you?
For me, I am much more of a collaborative writer. I don't like to write by myself. I have another project that I am writing by myself, and it's taking me so much longer because I really love the process of working with somebody else and bouncing ideas off of each other. For me, there's.
So that's Leah. Is that Leah?
Yes.
Mangum? Yeah.
Leah Mangum. Yeah. And Leah's husband is Jonathan Mangum, who's his business partner is Wayne Brady, and they do Whose Line Is It Anyway? And they also do Let's Make a Deal. But yeah, it's just I like the idea of working with somebody else and collaborating with somebody else. It for me, that's the process I like better.
Well, and you get to bounce your jokes and bounce your situations off of each other.
Exactly. Talk out loud and hear how the dialogue sounds coming out of this character's mouth, and is that true to that character? Or, you know, does it move the story forward? Or are we just doing it for the joke? You know, if that's the case, take it out. You know, that kind of stuff.
How did each of you get, let's start with Jill. How did each of you get on the show? Like, what was that? Was it just a normal audition process, or was it like?
Mine was different in that I was doing another show for Aaron Spelling before that called Friends. And it's not the Friends that everybody knows these days. The joke I always say is I'd be driving a much nicer car. But I was on that show, and I guest starred on The Love Boat. Aaron usually took his whole corral of actors and would spin him around to every show he was on, whether it was, you know, Family or Mod Squad or Dynasty or whatever it was. So I went from this pilot. Initially, he wanted to sign me to a studio contract. And my attorney at the time didn't want me to do that because she was scared that that would mean I was beholden to him and couldn't work for anybody else. So we didn't do that. We just did it project by project. And I guested on Love Boat as the captain's daughter, but never explicitly explained as the captain's daughter, just an inference. And because I had another show to go back to, which didn't get picked up. So then he called me and he said, would you like to come back and be a regular on The Love Boat? And so that's how it happened for me. I was very lucky.
Wow. And how long were you on?
Friends, I was auditioning for the musical for the road company of Annie. I'm a singer as well, and so I had gotten that, and then they saw me there, a talent scout, and they had me come and do a screen test for this TV show, and then I had to choose between the two. So.
Wow. What about you, Fred? I'm not sure if you ever told me this or not.
Well, I'm the only member of the company that's ever been fired by Aaron Spelling. Because, oh, sure, that's funny to you, isn't it?
Yeah, that is funny to me.
Yeah,
He
okay.
gets fired and he goes into Congress. What the heck?
So anyway, back in the day, I did a pilot it was originally called Where's the Fire? And it was billed as MASH at the Firehouse. And the two stars were me as the young rookie and the grizzled veteran who was played by a great actor named Cliff Gorman, who made his
boys in the band, Cliff Gorman?
And Lenny.
And Lenny.
He was Lenny on Broadway. He won a Tony for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so cut to the chase. We make the pilot. We're all shit canned. They fired the entire firehouse, but they kept the Dalmatian. So I'm done. Okay, I figure, well, I'll never work for this guy again. So then I get a call to audition for the first pilot of Love Boat. Now there were 3 pilots.
Wait. What happened to the Monster Squad? Where does that fit in?
Well, that was somewhere in there. I think that was before, but that's not relevant to this.
Yeah, he conveniently forgot about the Monster Squad.
Well, the Monster Squad was a huge thing. I mean, that's really
explain the premise. I want you to explain the premise of the Monster Squad because I'm sure Hunter missed it.
Yeah, I'd love to know what the Monster Squad is.
All right, okay, I'll tell you the Monster Squad.
Give us the premise.
The guy that developed the Monster Squad was the guy that did Batman, Billy D'Angelo. And he had an idea for a show whereby a young guy who runs a wax museum with the Wolfman, Frankenstein, and Dracula develops a computer to bring these guys to life. And they go out and fight crime every Saturday morning. Okay. All right.
Sounds like a winner to me, baby. I'm telling you.
Well, it was. Okay.
Hey,
So
it's
I wore a cardigan sweater, a bow tie, and white bucks that I ripped off from Pat Boone. And this was a Saturday morning show. There was a season where Saturday morning cartoons decided we want to do all live action. It's a complete disaster. But we made 13 shows.
Did a season. How many seasons did you do?
We did 1 season, but they ran it for 4 years.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, so and on all of the guys who did Batman did Monster Squad. So I played Walt, the young guy who ran the Walt.
Okay, Walt. Okay.
And I ran the wax museum, and the other stars were a guy named Bucky Cartelian, who had made his fortune doing Planet of the Apes movies. This guy didn't even know what his own face looked like. There was a guy named Michael Lane who had made his fortune or had made his career as a prize fighter in the Humphrey Bogart movie, The Harder They Fall. Wow. Who was playing Frankenstein, and a wonderful actor named Henry Pollock II who played Dracula, who was in a bunch of television shows later. And every Saturday we shot a half-hour show in 2.5 days, and we had 1 set. And for every season, for every new show, they just repainted a different color. So anyway, so I did that. And of course, that training was so invaluable when I got my audition for a Love Boat that I just sailed right in.
Yeah, sure.
But I was the only guy who was actually dismissed by Aaron Spelling, who was brought back to do the show. And Teddy and I did the first 2 pilots, along with Bernie Coppell. And then the 3rd pilot, which only happened after Fred Silverman took over ABC, the man with the golden gun. And we shot the final pilot on the Queen Mary, and they bought the series immediately. Right? Am I wrong about this, Ted?
Well, no, they didn't. They told Doug Kramer to get the hell out of the office, and then Aaron Spelling, I don't know if you remember this, we were at Chasen's, which was a fancy restaurant in Hollywood, in Beverly Hills.
Oh, it'd been on forever. It'd been around forever.
Yeah, and Doug Kramer went to Spelling and said they don't want to pick up this 3rd pilot of Love Boat. And this is what Aaron Spelling told us at the dinner, that he picked up the phone and gave them the date and the time that he wanted Love Boat to be on the air. And they said yes.
Well, ABC was
at
then...
that time, Spelling was doing all of the TV movies. He was so powerful. He had
Shonda Rhimes of the time.
Yeah,
He
had like 3 or 4 television cop shows on the air.
Well,
so
Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch.
Mod Squad.
Mod Squad.
The Rookies.
Charlie's Angels. The Rookies. And
he had
Heart
all
to
the
Heart.
shows on the air. So
Family.
at that time, he had enough muscle to say, look, I want Love Boat Saturday night. And originally it was on at 10 o'clock. He said, I want Love Boat Saturday night, 10 o'clock. Give me the okay. And they said, okay. Went on. And they had a second show from Spelling called San Pedro Beach Bums, which was actually the Bowery Boys in San Pedro, around the docks. And they thought that was going to be more successful than Love Boat. And so those were the 2 new shows that Spelling had offered to ABC. We went through the roof, and San Pedro Beach Bums went to the basement.
Well, ABC at the time was known as Aaron's Broadcasting Company, because he was without question the pater noster of successful television. It also happened to coincide with Fred Silverman taking over ABC, and when we became a hit, ABC became the #1 network. Remember the promos we used to do? We're the one. Remember those, Teddy?
Yeah, sure.
We used to do those. We're the one. Jill came on about 2 seasons later. But for about 5 years, Aaron did whatever the network wanted. This is probably an apocryphal story, but I'll tell it to you. Aaron would not fly. He would not get on an airplane because apparently he had seen an accident with some friends in an airplane, so he would never go.
No. Here's the story. Let me tell that story. The reason he wouldn't get on an airplane was because when he was in the service, all of his company got on an airplane that was going to fly from point A to point B, and Aaron missed the flight.
And
everybody went down in that flight. And so Aaron was paranoid to get on an airplane because he thought they were going to claim what they missed.
Yeah.
When he had a railroad car that was made up especially for him because he would travel by train across the country.
So this is what he would do when he would go to New York for pitches for network shows. Okay. There would be an Aaron train and he would go to New York. Okay. And he did that once when we shot in Miami and he got on the ship with us. So anyway, into his empire, he goes to New York to pitch a new season, and he comes up with a show, and the network guys are all sitting in a room, and of course they're terribly intimidated by him because he's so powerful. But he comes up with an idea which, even though they are genuflecting before this guy, they're saying, "Oh, Aaron, that's really not what ABC is doing right now." And Aaron goes ballistic. He said, you know what the problem with you guys is? You wouldn't buy a show unless it took place on some mystical island and there was some guy that could grant all of your wishes by just saying, welcome, here is your wish come true. And they said, sold. And that was Fantasy Island. Okay. And by the way, you know who the first Mr. Rourke was supposed to be?
Oh, you told me this. Right. It was like Tom Selleck or some.
Orson Welles.
Well,
right.
right.
But happily, they got Ricardo, who was the best ever.
He tried to get Orson Welles. I don't know if you know the story. He tried to get Orson Welles for years on Love Boat, and Orson kept turning him down. And finally, he offered Orson a ton of money and said, please come on the Love Boat. Why won't you come on the Love Boat? And Orson Welles said to Aaron Spelling, Aaron, I promised my mother on her deathbed I would never do a Love Boat. That was the last time they talked to Orson Welles about doing a Love Boat.
Well, anyone out there, if you guys, I'm just going to put it out there because I know sometimes it takes a while. If you guys have any questions, I've got my iPad up. I can read anyone's questions. If you guys have questions for these guys, I'll keep monitoring this, and if anyone comes anything. Jill, I think I've asked these guys this. One of my favorite things growing up was the Battle of the Network Stars. I think Fred or one of you guys were on it. Jill, did you ever?
Oh, Ted did it a lot.
Jill and I together were on the latest one.
Yeah, we were. I've done it 3 times, I think.
And my God, I lived for that. I loved it so much. And they even did like a takeoff, I think, on Saturday morning cartoons. They had like a cartoon like Battle of the Network.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Gosh, wow, that's a good memory.
Yeah.
Tell Hunter about the you and what's the rock and roll daughter's name?
Oh, Kelly Osbourne.
Kelly, yeah.
Which part?
How you just Kelly walked around talking about how great she was. Jill wasn't saying anything. Kelly Osbourne said, I can do this and I can do that. And we had a swim meet.
In a bathing suit. That's what I was doing. Silently praying that I didn't have to get into a bathing suit.
Yeah, well, you look fine. But so Kelly Osbourne is telling Jill how she's going to beat her in the swimming thing. Jill's not saying anything. And then, so we're going to do a relay. Jill is at the start of the relay. And then I'm standing next to the guy that is from Entertainment Tonight, who's about 30 years younger than me, 6'2". I'm 5'7". And he's walking around with his chest out and the whole thing. And he's looking at me like, well, you're not going to beat me swimming. Anyway, Jill dives into the water and smokes Kelly Osbourne, which of course gives us a huge lead. I dive into the water and I swim as fast as I can, and I'm waiting on the other side of the pool while this guy arrives. And so, yeah, we had fun. It was stuff like that with the Battle of the Network Stars that was fun to do.
Yeah, I remember. My favorite one, as I remember, was it Gabe Kapler beat Robert Conrad?
Gabe Kaplan. Welcome back, Cotter.
That's right. He beat Robert Conrad in a race.
Oh gosh, yes.
That's not possible. How could that be possible? That's comedy against adventure.
Yeah, but it was funny just seeing like Gabe Kaplan run and then beating Robert Conrad, which was. You remember a show? I don't know if I asked you guys this before. Do you remember a show called Baba Black Sheep that I think Robert Conrad was in?
Yeah, Robert Conrad. Sure.
That's how John LaRoquette got his start. Was
Baba Black Sheep?
John LaRoquette started on Baba Black Sheep.
Wow. Was that on?
Yeah. I met Robert Conrad. I met Robert Conrad at a restaurant, and I told him of an incident in which I did. I don't know if you remember the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
You remember that at all, Hunter?
Yep.
Yes.
The Wild Wild West. Bum 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 bum, and he'd take on 10 guys. And so I saw him at this restaurant in Beverly Hills, and I went over to him and I said, Mr. Conrad, I did an episode on Fantasy Island, and I played a guy that was a stunt guy, and I had to climb up a Ferris wheel to save my son, who was stranded on the top of the Ferris wheel. And I said, and as I climbed up that Ferris wheel, I sang the theme song of the Wild Wild West. Bum, 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 bum. And he loved it. And he tried to get me to direct. He was doing a TV movie, and he tried to get me to direct this TV movie that he was going to do. But we had to go up against CBS, and they weren't having it. But he was a good guy.
Yeah.
He was a good guy.
I have a
Robert
question for you
Conrad.
guys. So, this is from Christine Jakowski.
Oh, yeah. Christy.
Which guest was way more fun or trouble in a good-spirited way than you might have expected?
Rowdy Piper.
Rowdy Piper.
Why?
He was throwing, on that cruise, he was throwing furniture over the side of the ship.
Why?
He got hammered. Do you remember that?
Wow. I don't even remember that one. Of course, I was
Oh, yeah.
hammered most of the time on those cruises anyway, but
Yeah. Fred, who was, which guest was way more fun or trouble?
Well, fun or trouble, or fun and trouble?
Fun or trouble than you expect. Someone who's was not what you expected.
Let me see.
I'll give you one while you're thinking, Fred. I'll let you think.
Go ahead.
All right. I worked with Milton Berle. Milton Berle was known as Uncle Milty, and he was known for taking over a show or a scene, whatever he was in. Milton Berle was on the show. He was with Audra Lindley. And what
yes.
he did was he started taking over the scene he was in with Audra Lindley. And and what eventually happened is he cut all of her punchlines so she didn't have any punchlines. So he would say, I'll say this and I'll say that and I'll make this face and I'll make that face. You don't need to say anything, Audra. You'll be fine. Don't say anything. So she said, and I watched her. She was very passive. And she says, okay, Milton. And so he went through the whole scene. And basically what he did was he had the setups for the jokes and she had the punchline. Took out all of the punchlines and just did the setups and making faces and doing that sort of thing. And I thought she was going to be mad because he had done the show a couple of years earlier. And Martha Ray, I don't know if you remember Martha Ray, but he worked with Martha Ray as a husband and wife team. And she was in tears because he did a similar thing to Martha Ray. And she kept going around saying, I'm funny. I'm funny. Why is he doing that one? But with Audra Lindley, he took out all of the punchlines. And just as we got ready to film it, Audra said, you know, Milton, you did such a wonderful job. I think we ought to let the producers and the writers come down and see this before we shoot it. So the producers and the writers came down, they watched us rehearse the scene and went, wait, what happened to all the punchlines? And they put every punchline back in and we filmed it the way it should have been. And that was really a great lesson for a young actor in how to deal with a star that's a really big star, you know, without ruffling anybody's feathers. Because what she just did was just say, okay, that's a great idea. Let's show it to the producers and the writers. And they came down and they put everything back in because the director was totally intimidated by Milton. It was fascinating to watch.
That's what I mean. Is it must
Okay, well,
fascinating just to I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine, like, most shows are self-contained, you're dealing with, you know, you're the same sort of cast every week, but you guys were dealing with, like, every week a whole new group of actors, and you're dealing with people that are like Milton Berle and these people they're like you said, maybe they're on their way down, on the way up. That must have been interesting. I mean, of any show,
well,
I can't think of any other show that's like that you're literally
no,
having.
there wasn't. And that's one of the things. I mean, our show was the closest thing to the old studio system of the 30s that has ever been created in television. And Aaron knew that instinctively. And that's why people tuned in. I've been trying to answer the question. And I would say, normally I answer this question by talking about Ethel Merman, who played my mother, but I think I've told you that story. So the guy that I would say, and he was not trouble, but he was one of these guys you just wanted to sit at his feet and listen to him, and that was Vincent Price. Because Vincent Price, as an actor, was a great classical actor who had a distinguished career on stage. He did more crap in film. Dr. Phibes, The Fly, I mean, every crummy classic science fiction movie, and it never fazed him. Okay? So he and I we were doing a show together. He came on the show, and he was always genuine and easily accessible. And it turned out that he had gone to Yale and I had gone to Harvard, and we used to joke about that. And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Iowa." He said, "Oh my God." He said, "You know, back in the 40s, I did a tour of the Shaw play, Don Juan in Hell, with Sir Cedric Hardwicke, Charles Boyer, and Agnes Moorehead, okay? Pretty big guys, okay?" And he said, "We're in Des Moines doing Don Juan in Hell. And after the show, we go out to dinner. And Hardwicke orders fish in Des Moines in 1942. And the fish comes, and Hardwicke takes a bite and goes, long time no see." And that was the kind of thing that Vincent did just off the top of his head. I mean, it was just...
God, that's funny.
Vincent was, I have to say this, Vincent was an interesting guy. He found a way to connect to people. I remember sitting with him on the set, and he said to me, "Are you familiar with Duke Ellington?" And I go, "Yeah, of course." He says, "Well, did you know that Duke Ellington came to Los Angeles and he did a stage show called Jump for Joy?" And I said, "I sort of know." He says, "I was in it." So this is in the 40s. Vincent Price was when nobody wanted to work with black folks in Hollywood. Vincent Price was in a black musical with Duke Ellington called Jump for Joy. I mean, the guy was fantastic. Vincent Price was like a hero, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And we never would have gotten the chance to do that if the show had not been this this marketplace for the great icons of film and TV. I mean, Ray Bolger, Ted and I used to take people to lunch like Jack Gilford and others because we had
a thing called the Golan Club where we would take an old timer to lunch. Fred and I would go up to an old timer and say, "Hey, we're going to take you to lunch." And they go, "Well, what's the?" I said, "No, we're just going to take you to lunch." Then we take them to this restaurant called the Gardenia, which was about 2 blocks from the studio. And we'd have lunch, and Fred and I would sit there and say, "Tell us something about, your history. Tell us something about show business." And they would come out with these great stories. I mean, Gilford would talk about Zero Mostel, or that Lena Horne's real name is Helena Horne, and she was 17, and her parents bring her to Jack Gilford and say, "Do you think our daughter has talent to be in show business?" And he goes, "Yeah, So, I mean, that's how we collected a lot of stories you won't find in Hollywood history books or Broadway
no.
No.
It's all oral. It's like ancient history.
Kelly story. Your Gene Kelly story.
Oh, Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly came on our show, and it was an episode actually that Fred and I rewrote because the writers came to us and said, "We kind of gave you guys short shrift in this episode in Hong Kong, and we're sorry." So Fred and I said, "Well, let us read it, and if we come up with anything, let us write it?" And so Fred and I read it, and we came up with this idea. And it was about a guy that came on the Love Boat that was a spy, and he falls in love with a girl that's his enemy spy. And Fred and Gopher and Isaac think this guy's a spy, and we follow him around Hong Kong. And it was totally a lot of fun. But when they cast Gene Kelly as the spy, he was older and he was a little grumpy. And so they said to us, they said, don't talk to Gene Kelly. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. Leave him alone, because he's kind of a grumpy guy. So anyway, we're sitting on the bus waiting to go on the set. It's just me and Gene Kelly. And I think to myself, I got a chance to talk to Gene Kelly. Nobody wants me to talk to Gene Kelly. I'm going to talk to Gene Kelly. So I go over and I sit right across from him. I tap him on the shoulder, and he looks up at me, and he's kind of grumpy. And I said, Mr. Kelly, I have to ask you, what was it like working with the Nicholas brothers? Now, I assume that he's gotten 1,000 questions about Singing in the Rain.
Sure.
You know, but nobody ever asked him about the Nicholas brothers. So he looked at me for about 10 seconds, and you could see his wheels turning, and he decides to tell me a story with him and the Nicholas brothers. And it was fantastic. So after we go on the set, we shoot, we come back, he says, hey, he comes over to me, why don't you and I have a drink at the bar in the hotel? And I said, oh, yeah, sure, great. So it went from being this grumpy guy to just being a really giving, wonderful artist. And he and I sat up in this Hong Kong bar, having drinks, talking about show business. And then when it was over, he tried to pay for the bill, and I wouldn't let him. I said, no, Mr. Kelly, I have to pay for these drinks because I want to be able to tell my kids years from now that I sat up in a bar with Gene Kelly and I bought him drinks.
I mean, really.
Yeah, it was great.
That's amazing. All right, we could spend hours talking because you guys, but I want to give everyone a break. You guys have donated your time and been so generous, and we thank you so much for being a part of this. The Redhouse obviously is going through this similar things that every theater, every TV studio, every motion picture studio is dealing with in the country right now with the pandemic. We're working every single day to try to figure out a way for us to get back on stage or to figure out a way to bring theatrical content back to our audiences. And we thank you so much for being a part of Redhouse, being a part of our family. Jill, thank you so much for like I said, I watched the show, I watched you, I watched Airplane, all the, so I feel like I know you, and I don't know you, but you're always welcome. Please come to Redhouse. Please come to Redhouse.
Jill is a wonderful singer, and I know you do musicals there. So if you ever, she's just hits a home run every time a song comes out of her mouth.
I got a show for you, Hunter, if you want to do that. I got a show for you. Jill and my daughter Mariah and two guys in Closer Than Ever, Maltby and Shire.
Oh, sure.
Mariah did it off Broadway, and it's 4 people. It's wonderful music, easy to stage, and in this environment where I know you're probably going to be doing smaller shows, this is a musical that would, I think, reach people, but at a social distance.
Well, I think that you're right.
I love them.
We have to do small
What?
shows. I'm sorry, Jill, what was you saying?
See why I love them? This is why I love these guys. They're incredibly supportive.
Well, Syracuse is a lovely town, even though Ed complained about it, the cold, many times. He's like, coming from Los Angeles,
Well, I did live in Pennsylvania for 10 years, so I'm no stranger to snow.
Yeah. Well, it's going to snow here on Saturday, so.
Now, how is that possible? How is that even possible?
It's great.
I understand it completely.
It's going to be 37 in snow. Well, anyway, I want to let you guys go. Sorry, what were you saying, Joe?
Well, I just want to say Fences in the fall, right, Hunter? Fences.
Not officially. I don't want to say anything officially yet, but we're working to try to bring Fences back.
That's okay. That's good enough.
Hopefully soon. But yeah, I'd love to have I would love to have you all back at Redhouse, and Jill, I'd love to have you come out and be a part of something here at Redhouse as well.
I'd love it.
That'd be great. Thank you so much, guys, and please be safe. And yeah, we'll all chat soon. Have a great.
All right,
All right, brother.
Thank you so much.
So much. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.